Ladies and gentlemen, today I invite you to open your hearts and minds to a truth that transcends our understanding, a truth that whispers to us in moments of doubt and shouts to us in times of despair. When you can't, God can trust His plan. Life, with all its twists and turns, often tests our strength, challenges our courage, and questions our resolve. Yet, it is precisely in those moments of seeming impossibility that we are reminded of a power far greater than ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, when we speak of surrendering control, we are not speaking of weakness. We are speaking of courage, the courage to release the illusion that we are the masters of every circumstance, the architects of every outcome, the keepers of every key to the doors that life locks and unlocks. Surrendering control is not defeat. It is, in fact, a profound act of faith. It is the acknowledgement that we are part of a grand tapestry, threads intertwined in patterns far beyond our comprehension, and that there exists a hand, unseen yet infinitely wise, guiding the weave with perfect precision. How often do we clutch so tightly to what we believe must be, only to find that life, in its infinite wisdom, asks us to open our hands, to release, to let go, to trust? We imagine that by gripping every detail, by controlling every decision, we will secure our happiness, our success, our peace. Yet, in truth, it is the letting go that frees the soul, that allows the spirit to rise above fear and limitation, that allows the divine to work in ways we cannot imagine. Consider the moments in your life when you thought you could not endure, when the weight of circumstance pressed upon your chest like a stone, when the path forward seemed invisible, shrouded in darkness. In those moments, you may have tried to force outcomes, to bend reality to your will, to orchestrate events with human precision. And yet, time and again, life has reminded you that there are limits to what we can command. Surrendering control does not mean abandoning effort. It does not mean closing your eyes and drifting without intention. Rather, it is the conscious act of aligning your heart with a power greater than your own, of acknowledging that while you may not hold all the keys, you can trust the locksmith. There is a rhythm to life, a cadence orchestrated by the divine, and when we fight against it, we exhaust ourselves. When we surrender, we step into harmony, and harmony carries us farther than struggle ever could. It is not always easy to surrender control. Our minds are trained to plan, to strategize, to anticipate outcomes. Our hearts cling to what we love, to what we fear losing, to what we hope to protect. And yet, the very act of surrender asks us to take a step beyond the familiar confines of our own understanding. It asks us to say, I do not have all the answers, but I trust the one who does. It asks us to place our burdens not on our own shoulders alone, but in the hands of a God whose vision encompasses the entirety of our lives. There is freedom in this surrender, a liberation that cannot be found in the pursuit of control. When we release the need to micromanage our journey, we open ourselves to miracles. We invite possibilities that our limited perspective could never conceive. We create space for grace, for blessings, for the unfolding of our destiny in ways that are far more magnificent than we could ever plan. Think of the times when life has surprised you, when doors you thought were closed opened in unexpected ways, when relationships healed, when opportunities appeared, when your prayers, spoken or unspoken, were answered in forms you could not have imagined. Did these moments come because of your meticulous planning, or did they come because you surrendered, because you allowed life to move in its own rhythm, because you trusted that the divine plan was greater than your own? There is a profound lesson here, that the act of surrender is not passive. It is an active choice, a declaration of faith, a decision to walk forward knowing that while you may not control every step is guided. To surrender is to embrace humility, not humiliation, not defeat, but a quiet strength that acknowledges our human limitations while celebrating the infinite power that surrounds us. Surrendering control also requires patience. We live in an era that prizes speed, that demands immediate results, that rewards the illusion of omnipotence. But the divine does not operate on our timetable. The river of life flows at a pace that cannot be hurried, and every current, every bend, every obstacle has a purpose. When we surrender control, we learn to wait. We learn to trust the unseen process. We learn that the delays, the detours, the obstacles are not punishments, but lessons, shaping our character, refining our spirit, preparing us for what lies ahead. Patience, therefore, is the companion of surrender. To surrender without patience is folly. To surrender with patience is wisdom. And wisdom, in its highest form, is the ability to recognize that life's greatest outcomes are rarely the result of force, but of faith. Let us also speak of fear, for fear is the companion of control. When we cling too tightly to what we think we must hold, when we grasp at outcomes, when we demand certainty, fear whispers in our ears, telling us that if we let go, we will fall, we will fail, we will lose everything. And yet, fear is not truth. Fear is a shadow, a trick of the mind that convinces us that we are alone, that we are powerless, that the universe is indifferent. The act of surrender is the antidote to fear. When we release control, we acknowledge that we are not alone, that we are held, that we are supported, that our lives are cradled in the hands of a loving God who desires for us what we cannot even imagine for ourselves. Surrender transforms fear into faith, uncertainty into hope, limitation into possibility. Consider the stories of those who have walked before us, those whose lives inspire, whose courage teaches, whose faith endures. They are not remarkable because they controlled every circumstance, because they never faced hardship, because they never encountered pain. They are remarkable because in the midst of struggle, they surrendered, they trusted, they believed that while their hands could not shape every event, their hearts could align with a higher purpose. They understood that the true power does not lie in force, but in faith. And as we reflect on their lives, we are reminded that surrendering control is not a weakness, but the source of true strength. It is the power to rise above the trivial, the courage to release what we cannot change, and the wisdom to trust what we cannot yet see. Surrendering control also teaches us humility in our relationships. When we try to control others, to force them into our vision, to dictate their choices, we create friction, conflict, and disconnection. But when we surrender, when we release the need to manipulate or dominate, we allow authenticity, freedom, and love to flourish. We recognize that every soul is on its own journey and that our role is not to command, but to support, to guide, to uplift. In surrender, we find compassion, empathy, and understanding. For we see that just as we are guided by a higher power, so too are others navigating their paths under the care of the divine. And so, ladies and gentlemen, surrendering control is an act of liberation. It frees us from the chains of anxiety, from the weight of worry, from the illusion that we must carry the world on our shoulders. It allows us to breathe, to rest, to move with grace. It is the recognition that while we are not the authors of every outcome, we are co-creators with God, partners in a dance that is both beautiful and mysterious. It is the understanding that life is not about holding tight, but about opening wide. That it is not about forcing outcomes, but about trusting the process. That it is not about fearing the unknown, but embracing it with courage and faith. When we surrender control, we also discover our own resilience. For it is not in holding on, but in letting go, that we uncover the depth of our strength. We realize that we are capable of navigating uncertainty, of walking through storms, of facing trials with dignity and grace. Surrender does not diminish us, it empowers us. It connects us to a source of wisdom, creativity, and love that transcends the limitations of the human mind. And in that connection, we find not only peace, but purpose. Every step toward surrender is a step toward freedom. Every release of control is a declaration that we trust life, that we trust God, that we trust ourselves. And as we practice this surrender, moment by moment, decision by decision, we cultivate a life of grace, of flow, of alignment with the divine plan. We learn that it is not our job to carry the weight of the universe, but to carry our hearts with courage, our spirits with integrity, and our minds with faith. The world becomes less heavy, the path becomes clearer, and the soul becomes lighter. Surrendering control is also an invitation to gratitude. When we release the illusion that we must orchestrate every outcome, we begin to notice the beauty that already exists around us. We see the miracles in ordinary moments, the blessings in disguise, the lessons hidden in challenges. Gratitude flourishes when control is surrendered, for it is in letting go that we open our eyes to the abundance of life, the generosity of the universe, and the loving presence that guides us at every turn. Ladies and gentlemen, surrendering control is not a one-time act. It is a daily practice. It is a choice made in the quiet moments, in the small decisions, in the challenges that test our patience and courage. It is a commitment to trust, to faith, to hope, and to love. And though the path may be difficult, though the unknown may frighten us, though the storms may rage, surrender reminds us that we are not alone, that we are held, and that our lives are part of a story far greater than ourselves. When we surrender control, we discover a truth that is both simple and profound, that life is not about forcing, but about flowing, not about grasping, but about receiving, not about dictating, but about trusting. In surrender, we find the courage to face uncertainty with confidence, the wisdom to navigate life's complexities with grace, and the peace that comes from knowing that the hand that guides us is steady, loving, and infinitely capable. Surrendering control allows us to experience life fully. It invites us to engage with every moment without the burden of worry, to embrace every challenge without the fear of failure, to love without the need to possess. It teaches us that our greatest strength lies not in our ability to control, but in our willingness to trust, to release, and to let God's plan unfold in its perfect timing. It is a journey of faith, a journey of courage, and a journey of love that transforms the way we see ourselves, the world, and the divine. In the act of surrender, we find clarity. We begin to see the difference between what we can change and what we cannot, between what is ours to carry and what is meant to be carried by a power far greater than our own. We learn to focus our energy where it matters, to act where we can make a difference, and to release where we must. This discernment, born of surrender, brings peace to the mind, serenity to the heart, and purpose to the soul. Ladies and gentlemen, surrendering control is the gateway to miracles. It is the open door that allows divine intervention to enter our lives. It is the key that unlocks the hidden potential within us, the potential to grow, to heal, to thrive, and to shine. It is the quiet assurance that while we may not understand the path is perfect, and we are exactly where we are meant to be. Ladies and gentlemen, faith in the unseen is one of the most profound and transformative truths that we can embrace as human beings. It is a belief that reaches beyond the limitations of our eyes, a trust that goes deeper than the assurances of logic, a courage that persists even when the heart trembles at uncertainty. To have faith in the unseen is to walk a path without a map, to step forward into the unknown with the unwavering conviction that there is a destination far greater than anything we could imagine for ourselves. Life, in its complex tapestry, often asks us to rely on more than what we can see, to trust in more than what we can touch, to believe in more than what the mind can fully comprehend. It is in this faith, this sacred trust, that our souls find strength, that our hearts find peace, and that our lives find a rhythm that is in harmony with the divine. Faith in the unseen begins with the recognition that the universe, in its infinite wisdom, operates beyond the narrow scope of human perception. We are conditioned to seek evidence, to demand proof, to rely on certainty, and yet the most powerful forces shaping our lives are often invisible. Love, hope, resilience, and grace are not objects that we can hold in our hands, yet they influence every action, every decision, every breath that we take. So too is the hand of God guiding us, even when we cannot feel it, even when we cannot see it, even when every sign seems to suggest otherwise. To have faith in the unseen is to attune ourselves to this higher order, to trust that life is unfolding as it should, and to recognize that the moments that appear chaotic, random, or unjust are, in fact, part of a larger plan that our limited eyes cannot yet perceive. Consider the countless stories of triumph that history has preserved, the moments when individuals faced insurmountable odds, when every possibility of success seemed to have vanished, and yet they persevered because they trusted in something beyond the tangible. They did not see the outcome. They could not feel the resolution. All they had was faith, a steady, unwavering belief that the unseen hand of guidance was leading them toward a destiny that their hearts could feel, even if their minds could not understand. This faith gave them the courage to continue, to rise, to persist, to overcome. It is this faith that transforms ordinary people into extraordinary forces, that turns trials into triumphs, that allows the impossible to become inevitable. Faith in the unseen requires patience, for it is often tested in the silence, in the waiting, in the spaces between action and fulfillment. The unseen does not operate on our timetable. It is not bound by our expectations, our schedules, or our desires. The divine plan moves in its own rhythm, and our role is to trust, to wait, to hold steadfast in hope, even when the evidence seems scarce. This patience is not passive. It is active. It is a state of being that requires discipline, courage, and humility. It is the willingness to continue walking, to continue striving, to continue believing, even when the path ahead is shrouded in uncertainty, even when the destination is hidden from view, even when every logical impulse tempts us to give up. Faith in the unseen also requires courage. Courage is the companion of faith, for it takes great strength to trust what cannot be verified. It takes bravery to act without a guarantee of success, to speak words that may not be heard, to take steps that may seem risky or futile. And yet, it is in these acts of courage, fueled by faith, that life's most profound miracles occur. Courage and faith are intertwined. One cannot exist fully without the other. To have faith in the unseen is to embrace the unknown with a heart that is open, a spirit that is willing, and a mind that is ready to accept that the journey is as meaningful as the destination, that the lessons along the way are as important as the victories that await, that the unseen is not absence but presence, not emptiness but fullness, not despair but promise. Faith in the unseen transforms the way we perceive our challenges. When we trust in what we cannot see, difficulties become opportunities, obstacles become lessons, and uncertainty becomes a canvas for growth. Life no longer frightens us in the same way because we know that there is a purpose behind every struggle, a lesson within every hardship, a blessing hidden in every trial. The unseen hand is always at work, shaping, guiding, and orchestrating events in ways that our limited perception cannot grasp. It is faith that allows us to walk through storms with confidence, to navigate darkness with hope, and to confront fear with an inner strength that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. Consider the power of faith in relationships. To believe in the unseen is to trust in the goodness of people, in the sincerity of love, in the integrity of intentions, even when evidence is not immediately apparent. It is the faith that allows us to forgive when wounds are fresh, to extend kindness when it may not be reciprocated, to invest in others when the outcomes are uncertain. It is this faith that builds bridges across divides, that fosters understanding where there is misunderstanding, that creates bonds that endure even in the face of adversity. Faith in the unseen is not naive, it is wise. It is the recognition that there is a force greater than suspicion, a power stronger than doubt, and a truth deeper than appearances. Faith in the unseen also nurtures creativity and innovation. When we trust in what we cannot yet see, we allow our imagination to flourish, our ideas to take shape, and our visions to manifest. History is filled with examples of individuals who achieved the extraordinary because they believed in possibilities that others could not perceive. They dreamed of outcomes that were invisible to the world, and through faith and persistence, they made the unseen visible. In our own lives, faith empowers us to pursue our dreams, to take risks, to explore new paths, and to believe in solutions that are not yet evident. It is faith that transforms vision into reality, hope into achievement, and potential into fulfillment. Faith in the unseen is also a source of profound inner peace. When we trust that there is a higher plan at work, that the universe or God is guiding us with wisdom and love, we are freed from the constant anxiety that comes from trying to control every outcome. We begin to release our fears, our doubts, and our need for certainty. We learn to live in the present moment, to appreciate the beauty around us, to recognize the blessings that already exist in our lives. The unseen, though invisible, becomes a steady presence, a quiet reassurance, a guiding light that illuminates the path even when shadows obscure the way. Moreover, faith in the unseen strengthens our resilience. Life will inevitably challenge us, test us, and sometimes overwhelm us. But when we hold fast to faith, we discover a wellspring of strength that cannot be measured by external circumstances. The unseen becomes a source of comfort, a well of courage, a sanctuary of hope. It reminds us that even when we feel alone, we are supported. Even when we feel weak, we are empowered. Even when we feel lost, we are guided. Faith teaches us that the trials we face are temporary, the obstacles are surmountable, and the path, though unseen, is leading us to a place of greater wisdom, growth, and fulfillment. Faith in the unseen calls us to surrender expectations. Too often, we demand that life conform to our desires, that outcomes match our timing, that results reflect our plans. And yet, the divine or universal plan rarely aligns perfectly with our human agenda. To have faith in the unseen is to release the grip of expectation, to trust that even when life diverges from our imagined path, it is leading us exactly where we need to be. This faith allows us to navigate disappointment with grace, to embrace detours as opportunities, and to see every twist in the road as part of a story far greater than our own. Faith in the unseen is also a call to action. It is not passive waiting, but active participation with trust. It is the willingness to step forward, to take risks, to speak words that matter, to extend hands that help, to offer hearts that care, even when the outcome is uncertain. Faith empowers us to act with courage, to persevere through difficulty, and to continue our journey with conviction, knowing that every step is guided, every effort meaningful, and every challenge an opportunity for growth. Faith in the unseen nurtures humility. It reminds us that while we may not understand every twist and turn, while we may not know every outcome, while we may not control every detail, there is a greater intelligence at work, a wisdom that surpasses our own, and a love that enfolds us completely. This humility is not weakness. It is recognition of our place within the vastness of life, an acknowledgement that surrender and trust are more powerful than control and fear. In this humility, we find freedom, clarity, and alignment with our highest purpose. Faith in the unseen transforms the way we relate to time. We learn to see the present moment as sacred, to understand that each experience is a stepping stone, and to recognize that the journey is as meaningful as the destination. We become less attached to immediate results and more attuned to the unfolding of life's greater plan. Patience becomes a companion, trust becomes a guide, and hope becomes a light that leads us through uncertainty. Faith in the unseen deepens our connection to the divine. It is a spiritual practice, an acknowledgement that there is a hand guiding, a heart loving, and a mind orchestrating beyond what we can comprehend. Through this faith, we align ourselves with higher wisdom, opening channels for guidance, inspiration, and grace. We learn to listen to the quiet whispers of intuition, to follow the subtle nudges of insight, and to respond to the gentle prompting of our conscience, trusting that these unseen forces are leading us toward fulfillment, purpose, and joy. Faith in the unseen also transforms how we face mortality. It teaches us to trust in the continuity of life, in the enduring presence of spirit, and in the eternal nature of the soul. Even when confronted with loss, grief, or uncertainty, faith offers solace, comfort, and understanding. It reassures us that life's mysteries are not meant to be fully comprehended, that endings are often beginnings, and that what is unseen carries profound meaning, purpose, and promise. In every decision we make, in every challenge we face, in every dream we pursue, faith in the unseen is the guiding force that sustains us. It allows us to embrace the unknown with courage, to navigate uncertainty with resilience, and to live with hope, even when the path is not clear. It is faith that empowers us to rise above fear, to act with integrity, to love without reservation, and to trust without hesitation. It is faith that transforms lives, that turns despair into hope, that converts trials into triumphs, and that reveals the extraordinary within the ordinary. Faith in the unseen calls us to be vigilant, to remain steadfast, to cultivate an awareness of the subtle signs, the gentle confirmations, and the quiet miracles that occur every day. It encourages us to trust our intuition, to listen to the whispers of the heart, to respond to inspiration, and to act in alignment with the truth we cannot yet see fully but know deeply. This faith is a constant companion, a quiet force that sustains, nurtures, and directs us toward the life we are meant to live. Ladies and gentlemen, faith in the unseen is a journey, a practice, a discipline, and a gift. It teaches us patience, courage, resilience, humility, and hope. It invites us to trust, to act, to love, and to persevere. It transforms fear into confidence, uncertainty into clarity, and limitation into possibility. It is the invisible thread that connects our hearts to the divine, our actions to our purpose, and our lives to the grand tapestry of existence. Faith in the unseen is the essence of trust, the heartbeat of perseverance, the soul of courage, and the foundation of every triumph. It allows us to see beyond the immediate, to believe beyond the tangible, and to act beyond the evidence. It is the quiet conviction that even when we cannot see the path, it exists. Even when we cannot touch the outcome, it is real. And even when we cannot understand the process, it is perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, patience in process is one of the most profound lessons we can ever embrace. A lesson that stretches beyond the boundaries of time, beyond the confines of immediate gratification, beyond the impulse to demand instant results from a universe that operates according to a rhythm far wiser than our own. To practice patience in process is not merely to wait, it is to trust, to endure, to remain steadfast in the midst of uncertainty, to hold a quiet confidence that the unfolding of life's events is moving precisely as it should, even when our eyes cannot yet see the end. It is the recognition that the seeds of our dreams are planted in soil we cannot fully inspect, watered by hands we cannot always perceive, and nurtured by forces that surpass our understanding. Patience in process is the gentle acknowledgement that the path toward fulfillment, toward purpose, toward divine alignment is often winding, sometimes challenging, and always instructive. It teaches us that life's most significant transformations do not occur in haste, that true growth emerges slowly, deliberately, and inevitably when we allow time to do its sacred work. To embrace patience in process is to resist the temptation to control every outcome, to manipulate every circumstance, to force our desires into immediate reality. The human heart, in its eagerness, often longs for certainty, for clarity, for speed, for the immediate manifestation of hopes and dreams. Yet the wisdom of patience reminds us that rushing through life diminishes the depth of our experience, obscures the lessons embedded in each stage, and overlooks the beauty of gradual transformation. There is a sacredness in the unfolding, a divine orchestration in the progression from one moment to the next. And in our impatience, we risk missing the profound gifts hidden along the way. Patience in process is not inaction. It is the conscious, courageous choice to trust that every moment, every challenge, every delay has a purpose, and that by honoring the process, we honor the plan of a loving God who sees the entirety of our journey in ways our limited vision cannot comprehend. Consider the growth of a tree. The acorn does not demand immediate recognition, does not plead for instant maturity, does not insist that the world acknowledge its potential before it has taken root. It rests quietly in the soil, absorbing nourishment, developing resilience, bending in the wind, embracing the rain, waiting for the right season to emerge. The tree does not rush the sunlight, does not question the timing of the rain, does not resist the slow unfolding of its own destiny. And when the time is right, it rises tall, strong, and majestic, offering shade, fruit, and beauty to the world around it. So too is the journey of our lives. Each stage, each struggle, each period of waiting is a part of the process, shaping us, strengthening us, and preparing us for the fullness of our purpose. Patience allows us to remain rooted in the present while trusting the future, to cultivate resilience while navigating uncertainty, and to embrace growth without the need for immediate reward. Patience in process also nurtures humility. It teaches us that we are not the sole architects of our lives, that there are forces greater than ourselves at work, guiding, shaping, and directing the flow of events in ways that transcend our understanding. When we cultivate patience, we acknowledge that our role is not to dictate every detail, but to engage faithfully in the steps that are ours to take, to act with integrity, and to trust that the larger picture is being orchestrated by a wisdom far beyond our own. Humility and patience are inseparable companions, reminding us that the process is as important as the outcome, that the journey itself contains lessons and blessings, and that the rhythm of life cannot be hurried without loss of insight, growth, or grace. Patience in process is also a teacher of resilience. Life will inevitably challenge us, present obstacles, and test our endurance. In moments of difficulty, when outcomes are delayed, when hopes seem deferred, patience allows us to maintain our composure, to hold fast to our faith, and to persevere in alignment with our purpose. It reminds us that every setback, every delay, every difficulty carries a lesson, and that by enduring with patience, we cultivate strength, wisdom, and fortitude. The storms we weather, the trials we face, and the waiting we endure are not signs of failure or divine neglect. They are opportunities to deepen our understanding, refine our character, and fortify our spirit. Patience transforms endurance into mastery, struggle into insight, and waiting into preparation for the blessings that lie ahead. Consider the times in your own life when the answers did not come immediately, when doors seemed closed, when the path forward was unclear. It is often in those very moments of waiting, of seeming stagnation, that the most profound transformations occur. The heart is strengthened, the mind is sharpened, the spirit is refined, and the soul is prepared for the opportunities and responsibilities that await. Patience in process teaches us to remain attentive, to remain engaged, and to remain faithful even when the outcome is not yet visible. It is a quiet, steadfast trust that the unfolding of events is moving according to a plan that is perfect, even when we cannot yet see the final design. Patience also cultivates gratitude. When we learn to honor the process, we begin to appreciate the incremental progress, the small victories, the subtle shifts that occur over time. We recognize that life's most meaningful achievements are rarely the result of sudden, immediate action, but rather the culmination of consistent effort, faithful endurance, and steadfast trust in the unseen. Gratitude emerges as we acknowledge the lessons embedded in each step, the growth hidden within every delay, and the blessings that accompany even the smallest signs of progress. Patience allows us to savor the journey, to celebrate the unfolding, and to recognize that every moment, no matter how seemingly insignificant, contributes to the larger narrative of our lives. Patience in process is also an exercise in faith. To trust that things are unfolding according to divine timing requires us to relinquish the illusion that we must control every outcome. It calls us to believe that the delays, detours, and unexpected twists are not obstacles, but rather integral parts of a design that we may not yet fully comprehend. Faith and patience are intertwined. One cannot truly exist without the other. Patience is the practice of holding steadfast in faith even when the evidence is not yet apparent, and faith is the reward of patience, revealing itself in the eventual manifestation of what was once unseen. This dynamic interplay nurtures a sense of hope that persists through trials, a confidence that endures through uncertainty, and a courage that rises above doubt. Patience in process also teaches empathy and understanding. When we recognize that others are navigating their own journeys, that everyone is moving through their own processes, we develop compassion for the struggles, delays, and challenges they face. We begin to see that impatience, judgment, and frustration are often born from a limited perspective, from the desire for immediate results, and from a lack of trust in the unseen forces at work. Patience allows us to extend grace to others, to honor their timing, and to support their growth without interference. In this way, patience enriches our relationships, strengthens our communities, and fosters a culture of understanding, kindness, and collaboration. Patience in process also enhances creativity and problem solving. When we allow ideas, solutions, and innovations to develop over time, without forcing premature outcomes, we create space for depth, insight, and clarity. The creative process, like life itself, cannot be rushed without compromising its integrity. By embracing patience, we allow inspiration to unfold, intuition to guide, and wisdom to emerge in ways that are authentic, meaningful, and enduring. The fruits of our labor are richer, more nuanced, and more impactful when they are cultivated with time, care, and patience. Patience also deepens spiritual awareness. It teaches us to attune to the subtleties of life, to notice the signs, to hear the whispers of guidance, and to discern the lessons woven into each moment. In the quiet spaces of waiting, in the stillness of anticipation, we become more receptive to insight, more aligned with purpose, and more connected to the divine presence that orchestrates the unfolding of our lives. Patience is a spiritual discipline, a practice of surrender, a recognition that the unseen hand guiding us is perfect, and that every step, every pause, every delay carries meaning beyond our immediate understanding. Consider the metaphor of a river carving its path through the landscape. The water does not force its way, does not resist the obstacles, does not demand immediate passage. It flows steadily, persistently, patiently, following the contours of the earth, eroding rocks slowly, shaping valleys, nourishing life along its course. The river teaches us that patience in process is not passive, but powerful, not idle, but intentional, not weak, but enduring. Like the river, we too can navigate the twists and turns of life with grace, persistence, and unwavering trust that the path, though sometimes challenging, is moving us toward our intended destination. Patience in process also strengthens our character. It cultivates virtues such as perseverance, resilience, humility, gratitude, empathy, and faith. It allows us to develop a deeper understanding of ourselves, our values, and our purpose. Through patience, we learn to face adversity with courage, to navigate uncertainty with confidence, and to embrace change with grace. We discover that the process itself is as transformative as the outcomes we seek, and that the lessons embedded in the journey shape us into individuals capable of greater wisdom, compassion, and strength. Ladies and gentlemen, patience in process is not an easy practice, for it requires us to release control, to temper our desires for immediate results, and to trust in the timing of the universe. Yet, it is one of the most rewarding disciplines we can cultivate. It teaches us that life is a series of unfolding moments, that every delay carries meaning, that every obstacle holds a lesson, and that every stage of the journey contributes to our growth, our fulfillment, and our ultimate purpose. Patience allows us to move through life with grace, confidence, and faith, knowing that even when the path is unclear, even when progress seems slow, even when outcomes are delayed, the process itself is preparing us for what lies ahead, equipping us with the wisdom, strength, and insight necessary to embrace the fullness of our destiny. Patience in process is the bridge between effort and fulfillment. It reminds us that while we must act, strive, and persevere, we must also wait, observe, and trust. The balance between action and patience is delicate, yet essential. By practicing patience, we honor the natural flow of life, acknowledge the guidance of the divine, and cultivate the resilience to endure challenges without losing faith. It is through this balance that we learn the art of living fully, the courage to embrace uncertainty, and the wisdom to recognize that timing, like life itself, is orchestrated with precision, purpose, and care. Patience in process deepens our appreciation for the beauty of life's unfolding. Each step, each delay, each challenge contributes to the richness of our experience, shaping our perspectives, nurturing our growth, and enhancing our capacity to love, understand, and create. When we embrace patience, we cultivate an awareness of the present moment, an understanding of the journey's significance, and a trust that every stage of life, no matter how difficult or slow, is meaningful and necessary for our development and fulfillment. Patience in process teaches us to trust our own capacity for endurance. It reminds us that we are capable of weathering storms, navigating uncertainty, and sustaining hope even when the outcomes are not immediately visible. The practice of patience strengthens our resilience, nurtures our inner peace, and empowers us to face challenges with courage, grace, and unwavering faith. It allows us to move forward with confidence, knowing that every step, every pause, every moment of waiting is an integral part of the path that leads us toward our highest potential. Patience in process is a reflection of faith, a manifestation of trust, and an expression of love for ourselves, for others, and for the divine. It encourages us to surrender the illusion of control, to embrace the wisdom of timing, and to recognize that life's unfolding, though often mysterious, is always purposeful. Through patience, we cultivate the ability to endure, the courage to persist, and the insight to discern meaning in every experience. It is a practice that transforms our perspective, strengthens our character, and aligns us with the deeper rhythms of existence. Ladies and gentlemen, courage to keep moving is the heartbeat of perseverance, the lifeblood of hope, the force that propels us forward when the weight of life threatens to pin us to the ground. It is the quiet yet resolute strength that rises in the face of adversity, that whispers to the heart when fear and doubt speak loudly, and that reminds us that the journey is not over, the path is not blocked, and the purpose is not lost. Courage to keep moving is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it, the willingness to step forward even when the road is uncertain, and the faith that each step, no matter how small, is a step toward fulfillment, toward growth, and toward destiny. Life presents challenges that seem insurmountable, obstacles that appear immovable, and moments that feel unbearably heavy. Yet it is courage that allows us to continue, that keeps us from surrendering to despair, and that transforms struggle into triumph. Courage to keep moving begins with self-belief. To move forward in life, even when circumstances seem to oppose us, requires a steadfast conviction in our own strength, resilience, and purpose. It is the recognition that we are capable of more than we realize, that our potential extends beyond the limitations imposed by doubt, fear, or past failures, and that within us exists an untapped reservoir of power waiting to be drawn upon. Courage calls us to trust ourselves, to honor our inner voice, and to act even when the path ahead is unclear. It demands that we acknowledge our fears, yet not be governed by them, that we recognize obstacles, yet not be paralyzed by them, and that we hold our vision steady, even when the world seems determined to blur it. Consider the times in life when moving forward was the hardest choice, when the familiar was comforting, yet unfulfilling, when the unknown was frightening, yet full of promise. It is in these moments that courage manifests most profoundly. It manifests in the single step we take when every instinct tells us to stop. It manifests in the decision to speak the truth when silence would be easier. It manifests in the act of continuing the journey when the destination seems distant and uncertain. Courage is not always loud or dramatic. Often, it is quiet, steady, and persistent. It is the whisper that urges us onward, the gentle nudge that reminds us that we are capable, that we are resilient, that we are meant to persevere. Courage to keep moving is intimately connected to faith. It is the faith that assures us that even when the path is obscured, the light exists, that even when the road is steep, the summit awaits, and that even when we stumble, the support we need will be present. Faith strengthens courage, and courage nourishes faith, creating a dynamic force that enables us to face uncertainty with determination, to navigate challenges with grace, and to embrace life's trials with hope. Without courage, faith remains an abstract belief. Without faith, courage can falter under the weight of doubt. Together, they become the foundation upon which resilience, perseverance, and success are built. Courage to keep moving requires endurance. Life is not a sprint. It is a journey that demands patience, persistence, and stamina. There will be moments when the body is tired, when the mind is weary, and when the spirit feels weak. In these times, courage sustains us, reminding us that progress is measured not by the absence of difficulty, but by the willingness to continue despite it. Endurance is nurtured by courage, for it is courage that allows us to face hardship without surrendering, to confront fear without retreating, and to maintain our course even when progress seems imperceptible. It is through this endurance that we discover our true strength, our capacity for resilience, and the limitless potential that resides within us. Courage to keep moving also demands vision. It requires that we see beyond the immediate obstacles, that we imagine the possibilities that lie ahead, and that we hold a clear picture of our purpose, even when circumstances obscure it. Vision and courage are inseparable. Vision gives direction to our steps, and courage provides the energy to take them. Without vision, courage can become aimless. Without courage, vision remains unfulfilled. When we cultivate both, we are empowered to navigate life with clarity, determination, and unwavering focus, trusting that each step brings us closer to the realization of our goals, dreams, and divine purpose. Courage to keep moving is deeply transformative. Each time we act despite fear, each time we persist despite setbacks, each time we rise after a fall, we expand our capacity for resilience, strength, and wisdom. We learn that failure is not final, that obstacles are not insurmountable, and that uncertainty is not permanent. Courage reshapes our understanding of ourselves, revealing inner resources we may not have known existed, and teaching us that our potential is far greater than our circumstances suggest. It is in the repeated acts of courage, both great and small, that we forge character, build confidence, and cultivate the unwavering resolve necessary to navigate the complexities of life. Consider the power of courage in the face of fear. Fear is a natural companion on the journey of life. It alerts us to danger, heightens our awareness, and challenges us to be vigilant. Yet, when fear dominates, it becomes a barrier, an obstacle that prevents us from moving forward, from taking risks, from embracing opportunity. Courage does not deny fear. It acknowledges it, respects it, and chooses to act regardless. It is the bridge between fear and action, the force that allows us to step into uncertainty with trust, and the engine that propels us toward growth, achievement, and fulfillment. Courage to keep moving also teaches humility. It reminds us that while we may not control every outcome, we are responsible for our own choices, our own efforts, and our own response to life's challenges. It calls us to act with integrity, to honor our values, and to move forward with purpose, even when recognition or reward is not immediate. Humility and courage coexist. Humility tempers arrogance, and courage tempers doubt, creating a balanced approach to navigating life that is both grounded and empowering. Courage to keep moving fosters resilience in relationships. Life's journey is rarely solitary. It is shaped by the people we encounter, the communities we build, and the connections we nurture. Courage allows us to maintain honesty, compassion, and empathy in our interactions, to confront difficult conversations, to forgive when necessary, and to support others in their own journeys. It empowers us to remain steadfast in love, loyalty, and commitment, even when challenges arise, and to contribute positively to the collective journey of humanity. Courage to keep moving inspires hope. When we witness acts of courage, when we see individuals continue despite adversity, we are reminded that human spirit is capable of remarkable endurance, creativity, and growth. Courage serves as a beacon, illuminating the possibilities that exist beyond fear, doubt, and limitation. It teaches us that obstacles are not the end, that setbacks are not permanent, and that perseverance is rewarded through growth, understanding, and the unfolding of our potential. Hope and courage are intertwined. Courage nurtures hope, and hope fuels courage, creating a virtuous cycle that sustains us through life's most challenging moments. Courage to keep moving also nurtures self-compassion. It reminds us to honor our efforts, acknowledge our struggles, and recognize our achievements, no matter how small. Courage is not measured solely by grand acts of heroism, but by the quiet determination to continue each day, to face the trials of life with dignity, and to maintain faith in the face of adversity. Through self-compassion, we cultivate patience, resilience, and a deeper understanding of our own journey, enabling us to move forward with grace and integrity. Courage to keep moving encourages creative problem solving. When faced with obstacles, courage allows us to explore alternative paths, seek innovative solutions, and take calculated risks. It fosters adaptability, resourcefulness, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty as an opportunity for growth. In the act of moving forward with courage, we discover new strengths, new perspectives, and new possibilities that would have remained hidden if fear had prevailed. Courage to keep moving also nurtures spiritual growth. It is a reflection of faith, a demonstration of trust in the unseen, and an alignment with a higher purpose. Courage allows us to act in accordance with our values, to pursue our calling, and to contribute meaningfully to the world, even when the path is uncertain or the outcome is not guaranteed. It strengthens our connection to the divine, reminding us that we are supported, guided, and empowered to fulfill our purpose in alignment with a greater plan. Consider the countless individuals whose courage has transformed history, communities, and lives. They are not remarkable because they were fearless. They are remarkable because they acted despite fear. They faced uncertainty with determination, adversity with resilience, and opposition with integrity. Their courage inspired others, created change, and demonstrated that the human spirit is capable of extraordinary achievement when it refuses to be immobilized by doubt or despair. In their stories, we find lessons, motivation, and the assurance that courage is accessible to us all. Courage to keep moving reinforces the importance of persistence. Life's path is rarely linear. It is marked by twists, turns, setbacks, and surprises. Courage allows us to persist, to maintain focus on our goals, and to continue striving even when the journey becomes difficult or discouraging. It transforms obstacles into opportunities, challenges into lessons, and delays into preparation for future success. Through persistence fueled by courage, we cultivate the discipline, strength, and insight necessary to navigate the complexities of life and achieve meaningful outcomes. Courage to keep moving also empowers leadership. It enables us to stand for truth, advocate for justice, and support others in their own journeys. Courage allows us to inspire, to guide, and to uplift, demonstrating through action that challenges can be faced, adversity can be overcome, and growth is possible. Leaders who embody courage create environments of trust, motivation, and resilience, fostering communities that thrive even in the face of uncertainty and change. Courage to keep moving is deeply personal, yet universally relevant. It is the force that allows each of us to pursue our dreams, honor our values, and navigate life's challenges with integrity. It is the energy that propels us forward when obstacles loom, when fear beckons, and when doubt threatens to derail us. Courage reminds us that the human spirit is resilient, that our potential is limitless, and that every step we take in faith, determination, and purpose contributes to the unfolding of a life rich with meaning, growth, and fulfillment. Courage to keep moving cultivates gratitude. As we move forward despite challenges, we become aware of the progress we have made, the strength we have discovered, and the lessons we have learned. Gratitude and courage are intertwined. Courage allows us to face difficulties with resilience, and gratitude allows us to recognize the value in every experience, shaping our perspective and enriching our journey. Courage to keep moving transforms fear into action, doubt into confidence, and adversity into opportunity. It teaches us that movement, even when uncertain, generates momentum, insight, and growth. Every step forward, guided by courage, builds resilience, nurtures hope, and strengthens our capacity to navigate life with purpose, integrity, and faith. Courage empowers us to confront the unknown, embrace challenge, and persist in the pursuit of our highest potential.